Thank you, Mauricio. There were a few things I didn't understand, but I didn't have enough time to get back to you. So maybe now you can clarify it. Let me go back to them. You know, it's amazing because I was sitting here and it's very hot. And I couldn't find my fan this morning. And I put on a new blouse that I love because of the color and it felt so good. But it's made with a material that doesn't breathe. And I was sitting here sweating. And I was thinking of these poor Kohanim who are inside this Mishkan. And it says in this portion, they should wear clothes that doesn't make them sweat. And I fully could understand that. Can you imagine? There were no fans inside and they were
and with physical work in the desert.
In the desert, no windows, all enclosed. It's incredible because we don't stop to think. You know, when I wish I had listened to this message before my Wednesday night, because you open some new areas of just practicality. You know, these things that God gave us were so practical. Sometimes we make it so spiritual, but we don't know how to bring them into practical applications for our lives. And this is what you did in this week's portion. Now, there was just a couple of things I want to see. Go ahead if somebody else wants to ask something, or if you want to clarify something, Mauricio.
Well, for me, honestly, it was very hard at the beginning because you start to read a portion, you say, oh, how it could be. But honestly, it's talking about how practical was his life as Kohanim.
Right.
In also speaks different things, some that I didn't touch, but it's related to a practical daily life. For example, the Shulamite woman with his son who bless, who
blaspheme,
did not blaspheme,
right?
Yeah, God, and then you start to think why he was killed, because how many people today will be killed by God because it's the name of God has been used today like it's nothing. I mean, I for example, if I hammer in something and then I just hit my finger, how many people blaspheme against God for that? Okay, it's just a simple example.
But maybe we get sick from that and we don't realize why we're getting sick.
Yeah,
you know, but
things
there
like
have
that.
been, but you know, in the last few wars, there have been millions and millions of people who have been killed. And we don't know that this is, you know, there's always, of course, the innocent who suffer with the guilty, but we don't know if maybe this is why this is all happening as well.
Yeah, but that makes me think about family, because the problem of these kids is according to the Torah, is related also to the family, because it says that he was part of Dan's tribe. His mother was Shlomit and his father was an Egyptian, right?
Right.
So, but the Torah doesn't say that they were together, father and mother. So, according to the Mirashim, this kid was product probably because the name of Shlomit means a person who is saying shalom to everyone. Okay, shalom, shalom, shalom. Shlomit. Okay, a lot of shalom. And the problem is that this woman, according to the Torah, to the Midrashim, they said, okay, there are two probabilities, because one, it says that she was a daughter of Devar, a man who has the award, and it's like the problem of I don't know how to say that in English, but the word in Spanish is coqueteria. This is the kind of woman who
In
is
English too,
talking
very coquette.
about coquette. Okay,
Yeah.
so you start to say hello, how you
Yeah.
doing, and the other side hello,
Yeah.
and you know you are attractive. In woman, please understand, men, we are very dummies, I would say.
Oh,
Okay, yeah. And just with a smile, a sweet word, you don't know the impact that makes to a man.
yeah.
In what is happening here, this, according to the Mirashim, she was the kind of girl, and she was too much shalom with men. She didn't have appropriate relationship, okay, with the limitations between men and women. Eh, I would say healthy limitations, okay, because I'm not also agree. Women's there, men there, opposite sides. No, eh, that is not good also. Eh, but the problem is that according to the Midrash, she was too much shalom with an Egyptian. This man is not the kind of man who is a husband. Probably he raped her because he remember what happened with the daughter of Jacob,
Dina.
Dinah. Yeah, what it says the Torah. She didn't have limitations. Okay,
She went out
she
alone.
didn't. She went alone. Yeah, and she knew he was not an Israelite. This man, he didn't have fear of God as well. An Egyptian, he didn't have fear of God. So she probably provoked the rape with his innocence. Okay, and then she had
But it's
a
also
son.
part of their culture.
Yeah, it's part of the culture. Yeah,
Yeah.
but then she had a son, and the son was not a man. I mean, he was not really a man 40 years old, for example. No, he was a kind of adolescent, I would say. Okay, and what happened to him? And this is very interesting because people is defending, oh, the Israelites come by the mothers. Okay,
Right.
but the problem is that if that is true, okay, then he will be counted as an Israelite, and he didn't, and
No.
that was the problem
Exactly.
because he wanted to put a tent in the midst of the tribe of Dan, and they say no, you cannot possess the land. You are not an Israelite, you are an Egyptian.
Wow.
Mm. And that provoked to this guy. Probably he all the time he looked at him as a bastard son. Okay.
Right.
Another point that my mother is alone, is a single mother. Um, in my own people do not allow me to be part of them. Okay, for that reason they are so the rabbi is saying, oh, that it was not correct, the position of Dan. Okay, but at the same time, uh the Torah is silent about that. Okay, and and when he didn't, when he was not accepted, okay, the problem is this case was not before the Lord prior. So he started to blame God because, oh, you gave me you know, that kind of person, right? Oh God, you made me poor. You gave me this kind of life. You didn't. I'm not a handsome person because you create me like that. Okay,
Right.
things like that. And I have heard many Jewish persons say, "Oh, and my nose is terrible." Okay, so and things like that. Okay,
I
they
was one of
start.
those.
No, all of you are so beautiful, and then you know that the point is, oh, he start to blame the God, to profane the God's name. Okay, so what was in his heart? He was angry. He was vengeful, and we have another in the Torah, another example that we can compare to this point, to this boy.
Didn't have him quote.
Remember the
Hold on, Brian.
the daughter of
Right.
Zelophehad,
Love hot.
okay. So this woman happened the very same thing, and it was harder because they
Oh
were
no, it wasn't
women a
Zelophehad.
lot.
Zelophehad had the 5 daughters.
That's
It-
$5, yeah.
Oh,
And,
it was
and
the
yet
same
they
person?
couldn't. Yeah,
Oh,
it's the very same situation because they could not inherit the land because they were women. Remember?
right.
And but the answer in the way they expose his their situation was completely different to
Right.
this young boy.
Right.
Okay, because this woman, yeah, they had a situation in which they could not inherit the land according to what Moses received from God.
Right.
Okay, but instead to profane the God's name,
Right.
what they went to Moses.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't went to Moses. They went to the clan leader or the 10 persons leader, and
Right.
then the problem was raising up until they got Moses.
Right.
Okay. In Moses, in God also saw a different heart from this woman.
Right.
And never said that they start to blame God for the situation. It doesn't say that they never say, "Oh God, why you create me as a woman?"
Right.
Okay,
Right.
and start to profane God's name because of the situation.
Right.
Okay. And what was the answer of God?
You were
Let
right.
them have inherit the land.
Right.
Okay. In this case of the boy, was not a problem of the land,
No.
was his behavior,
Right. Always the intention.
heart, intention of the heart.
Right.
So in that is more deep, okay? And then we understand why God says, "Oh, execute him." Was not because he was an Egyptian son. Was not because he was a bastard son.
Right.
Was not because if the problem is to be a bastard, for example, years later, God did not allow Gideon to be a leader of Israel, okay, a judge. So the problem is your heart, how you control your emotions when things that are negative happens to you. Okay, what is inside of you.
Right.
So um, so and for that reason, when I look to this portion, is talking about daily problems, okay, the daily life, okay, and yes, probably there are some situations that I would say that are grace in our lives, and for that reason, we could never say black and white, okay. Um, and to be honest, also I would like to add something else, which is about the time. Okay, I couldn't explain more, but also it's so important uh, that your time is very precious. Okay, and God says to Israel, sanctify your time. In how many people is losing a lot of time behind in the screen, how many people is losing their times behind a desk, behind a telephone, behind I don't know how many things.
You're trying to make me feel guilty?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I do.
you know, instead to create relationship with other persons, instead to care of 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 God's, of what God gave you, okay. For example, if you have the opportunity to have a garden, do you have time to care your garden?
Right.
Okay, for example, things like that. So uh, and I don't know if you want to add something else.
I was just looking for my notes because I know on Wednesday night that idea came to me, like, because I was looking at the cycles, like where we are in the world today, and the cycles that we keep going through, and how God has given us a formula, and there are various steps in this formula that he wants to keep us safe, just like here, like even with the Kohanim, he wanted to keep them safe. We would say, well, why couldn't a deformed person do these things? But you were right. These were practical, and God will always, like the steps in the formula I wrote was, the rules are spelled out. God always give us the rules. Like with Adam and Eve, in the case of them, it was one rule that they had. And what were they tempted? Was the knowledge of good and evil. We want to know, we want to be like God. You too shall be like God. And we see the same thing that's happening in the world today. And then it's all about trust. Everything he tries to get us to do is because we need to learn to trust him. Like Eve didn't trust the God who created her. Instead, she went and trusted the serpent, like a demigod, who tempted her. And then I wrote, when they broke the one rule, they chose their own ideas and beliefs above our Father in heaven. And thus we set ourselves up to walking through this life alone. God will turn his face from us and allow us to experience the consequences. However, he will always be there to catch us before it's too late. And then I wrote about this idea of time. Time reveals the consequences of our choices, and they could be painful. And understanding, part of this formula is understanding that time is a gift. And what do we do with this allotment of time in our lives? Miriam and I were talking the other day about this, Lord of the Rings, and he was saying, why did this have to happen to me? And what Gandalf said to him was, all we could do is choose how we live the time that we've been given. And, that's such an
Peggy,
important,
sorry, the
yes,
sound went, would you repeat that? The sound got blurry. The last sentence, Gandalf said,
said that all we can do is take a look at the time that we have been given and just live it. This is all we can do is accept what we've been given. And, when we look at time, we look at like the grandfather clock, and a clock has a pendulum. It all represents time. It swings to the right and it swings to the left. Right now, we're in a cycle where it's swinging far right and far left. And the far left is decadent immorality, and the far right is religious fanaticism. And we're going back and forth. The more decadent humans become, the more the religious fanaticism stands up. And we have to come to a point in our lives where we reach this equilibrium. And throughout our history, we've seen these civilizations go from right to left and right to left. We become immoral, we become decadent, and there's no balance. So, these cycles are like the birth pangs that we see. At the beginning, the birth pangs are very slow, soft, and far apart. And now in our history of mankind, we can see them as we're getting to the end of the 6,000-year period. We can see that the birth pangs, the pains are growing faster and faster and closer together. So time, it plays a big part on this planet, and how we spend it is extremely important. But we also can't beat ourselves up for sometimes, because nobody's perfect. And we can't all spend our time in perfect ways because we're so imperfect. But like our rabbi would say, God is a God of beginning again. So we can always go to him and say, God, please forgive me, for what I've done, and let me begin again. So we're in this cycle, this spiral that's constantly growing up. There's so much in this portion. It's really amazing that we can draw from it.
yeah, one of the things I have so many things, I never know where to start.
I
But
know.
one of the things that I find really special is that, like, for example, we tend to separate everything, like washing my hair and what I eat has nothing to do with God. But, praying and doing those things are what has to do with God. And we forget that God is in everything and with everything and has to do with everything, even simply what we eat. And I remember there's a saint. What was her name? One of the saints.
Avila?
Sorry, one second. Yeah. So there's
Agnes of Avila?
Yes, I think so. She loved to eat. She was very, very passionate woman. She loved food and she loved to eat. But also at one point, she realized that everything had to do with God. And she said something, I can't quote it exactly, but God is in the pots and the pans. It's God is with everything, the pots and the pans, and brushing our teeth, and how you say goodnight to your kids, or how you don't say goodnight to your kids. And and sometimes, like you say, we're not perfect also. Like, we're looking for, our friend, who are we looking for, Peggy, on Côte de Neige?
Yes.
And I was thinking, I'm so worried about my brother right now because he might be sick or whatever. So I wanted to find this person, but I didn't, my heart wasn't, I wasn't like losing sleep because he's not well.
Right.
And I'm constantly battering myself about that. Like, why aren't I in pain because of, and it's not, we can't contain the pain of everything, but
No.
it's really is what we do. I want that person to be well very deeply, like that I know. I want them to be well. I'm always knocking myself. We have to do the right things. We can't always feel the right things.
Exactly.
And in everything we do, we have to, God is everywhere in the pots and pans.
Exactly. It's like yesterday when we went to help Mildred. It's not that I love doing that stuff, but, and sometimes I lose my patience and I have no and I'm in a flurry because I want to throw everything out, and but I'm still, God is there with us no matter what when we're doing
Yeah.
the right thing.
And he
Yes,
forgives us. I know I could be really hard on
totally.
myself,
Thank God. He
It's
knows our
like,
hearts.
why aren't I doing this or why aren't I doing that? And we just have to, it's like day by day, God, as you said, God is the God of beginning again.
Yeah. And
Thank
what you
God.
said is true, Mauricio. We were originally, he said, you're a nation of a kingdom of priests, of Kohanim. Israel was chosen to be Kohanim, which is the link to God, which is why we're always under fire, because we are, we're being held to a higher standard. Angel, you wanted to say something?
Hi, Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shalom, shalom.
Yeah, it's my point of view here is I love the comparison of the priests and in the Torah it talks about the priests and all the regulations, the do's and you cannot marry a harlot, you cannot do things which is in the sense is it's I understand, but then I see the contrast of this view of having someone who has the responsibility, of being there, as a priesthood and do certain things that only them could were allowed to do and perform, and then in comparison with the people, there is a certain distance, and this distance, when we understand who we are as individuals, we are all sons of the Creator. Okay, we have His Spirit, His Ruach on us, and everyone, it's not above any other one. We are all humans. We all have soul and spirit. Whatever the some rabbis believe, and they try to bring their own understanding, saying, "Oh no, but these people don't have soul, or these people, yes, they have soul. They all have soul." Now, are they? Everyone has a different levels, of awakening. Every soul is in the process of learning, in life. And when I see that, and I compare with the priesthood, or the anointed Messiah, that is our Mashiach, Yeshua, and I compare and I read how he treated the people that was around him, how he was really connected to them in a spiritual level, in a heart level, that he would care about them. He will not be separate, and I am the priesthood and I have to distance from you. I have some things that I have to accomplish. I am very far positioned than you, and sorry, I just gotta.
Yeah, he didn't do that. He
Yeah, he didn't do that. But I love how Yeshua acted, and how he was among the people who were sick, how he was among the people who were in need, and because of this, way of, like, if you read the portion, I'll tell you there is a in Luke 7:36, which involves one of the Pharisees, asking over for a meal, and he went to the Pharisee's house and sat down at the dinner table. Just then a woman of a village, the town harlot, having learned that Yeshua was a guest in the home of the Pharisee, came with a bottle of a very expensive perfume. You know that verse?
Yes.
And how how she anointed the feet, the foot of Yeshua, and how she stood at her feet and weeping and rain. So, and you look how Yeshua answered to this, answer to the man, says, well, do you see this woman that came to your home? You provide no water. He's talking to the Pharisee. No, you didn't provide water. You didn't water for my feet, but she rained tears on my feet and she dried them with her hair. Yeah, in the sense that what I'm trying to say is that you can see the difference of a real, true priest. You know, a real priest that is among the people, and that it's that teaches the importance about being, as you say, in the presence of the Creator, which means living in the Spirit, not only living as a with intellectual way, more acting with the heart, as you say, when you do things for Mildred like that, those are come from the heart, that come from the Spirit. It was caring about others, have compassion about others, love
Right.
others, caring about others. That is important thing.
But that's what he was doing, was he was living the Torah. He was doing the same thing that Moses was doing. And he wanted us to come back to the Torah.
We
Yeah.
have this somehow we only focus on rules and don'ts and do's, and we act not in a hard way, from the soul. It's
Yeah.
not soul, it's just from the intellect. Oh, I follow this, I know that I'm going to be okay, because it's a brain, it's not a heart. You know what I mean? So basically, once we understand that, things will change completely. Start looking at each other as we are equals in the eyes of the.
Exactly. That's definitely what we need to do. But isn't what that the Ten Commandments summed up as, when he said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And it begins with our love for God, and then continues with our love for ourselves, how we treat ourselves. But today, honoring our parents is lost. These things that the Kohanim did were also for us to do.
Yes, that love our others as we love ourselves, right? But you know what the meaning, the real purpose of saying that is, seek and look the one that is in front of you. Look for the divinity of the Creator, the Spirit that is in him. Look for that. You will find God in him, whether he's has a broken feet, or it's ugly, or it's a person who has committed a lot of things that shouldn't commit, like a robber or a prostitute, or trying to look at this person and love this person, because the divine presence of the Creator, the soul, is in him. And that is what will make these people to come back. That will. Do you think that the prostitute in this case was the harlot that was at the feet of Yeshua? She found a man who truly loved. She was at her feet. She showed all her love unto him, real love, that she did not show to the other men that were, making love as a prostitute. And she really understood. From that moment on, she passed from being living in not in the Spirit, for living now on in the Spirit, in the understanding. Now her conscience was completely changed. She knew what was to love, to really love. And from then on, you see in the scriptures, how she will follow him. And not only that, she will stay with the disciples, will follow everywhere. She will give everything to support Yeshua's ministry, or Yeshua's thing, following the disciples. And not only that, there is other scriptures that they were not allowed by the church or other entities to show who that prostitute was, and what was the relationship with Yeshua, and what happened afterwards. There are things that they have been hiding from us. And when you know and you read those scriptures, and you will and find out who was and what was the relationship later on, you will understand more what Yeshua was.
Well, we can understand who Yeshua was because he was a man who wanted to bring us back to the living Torah. Unfortunately, we cannot trust a lot of the things that are written in the New Testament because they've been changed. They were trying to create a new being, a demigod, and so the only time that we can trust what it says was if it is in agreement with the Torah. The Torah is the only thing that we have. The Ten Commandments, the only thing that we have that were written by the finger of God. The rest is by man. So we have to really discern. And, I remember Rabbi used to teach us all the time, be careful when you talk about love, because love does not necessarily look like huggy, huggy, kissy, kissy. Because let me tell you, when I went over to do pack the boxes and throw things out yesterday, I wasn't always lovey, lovey, kissy, kissy. Sometimes I was losing my patience. It isn't always easy to make some of these decisions like Mauricio spoke about today. My mother calls me and then my wife calls me. They both want me to do something at the same time. Who do I choose? You know what to do because of what it says in the Torah. These are practical, everyday things. When you come home, Angel, and your wife has been busy in the garden or something all day, and she has a project for you to do, and you say, no, I prefer to do this because this is going to make me spiritually high, and I'm not doing the things that she's asking me to do, and then she's getting all upset, and then the kids are getting all upset. It's God wants us to live practical lives. That's what the message is that you were saying, Mauricio. He's in every single thing we do, whether we're sweeping the floor, whether I'm cooking. Sometimes my daughter will call me and I'm busy with something and that's enjoyable for me, and I don't want to take the time to talk to her. And then I have to remember my priorities with my family, not a movie. My mother used to do that all the time. She never had time for me. Either was business, or she was at work. I couldn't call her because I would be afraid she'd be upset. Or, if she was reading a book or watching a movie, everything else was always more important. And I have that in me that I have to fight every single day, that other things are more important than my own family and my own children because they're easier. It's not easy to spend time with your family. So these are things that God is teaching us. And and he always used to say, Rabbi would say that love is loyalty, is doing the right thing for the right reason. And this is a struggle for us as human beings. So this is what these portions are teaching us. I was just watching a movie, and you can find it on YouTube, and it was called Creating Christ. And literally it goes through the history of how the church created the being.
It's a documentary, by the way. Yeah.
A documentary creating the being Jesus Christ. And we have been so tainted thinking that our Yeshua is the same as that creator, that created being. He has nothing to do with them, absolutely nothing. And we don't have a lot that helps us to recognize who this rabbi really is. But we can compare him to Moses and to the prophets and to those who came before him who wanted to be very faithful to the God of Israel. We need to be faithful to the God of Israel above all religion. That's why we struggle in this community. That's why we're a remnant, because people want a bunch of rules and regulations that they could follow. It's like what you were saying, Mauricio, today and I was thinking of how the mafia will go to the priest and ask to be forgiven for their sins, not because they really wanted to be forgiven, but because they wanted a whitewash. They wanted to be able to whitewash the thing that they were, and then the priest would forgive them, and they would go out and do exactly the same thing over and over again. They would kill somebody else, but they were, they had paid the priest. This is not what God wants from us. We have to do what is right, what is just. He constantly says, tzedek, tzedek, tirdof, justice, justice we must pursue. And you see that in the nature of Israel. Even today, you see how we want justice, but we're getting to the point where we want, and I feel it in me sometimes. I have to fight it. I want revenge. I want vengeance on my enemies. And I have to remember, vengeance is mine. But I'm not going to go up to the Hamas people and go, kissy, kissy, look how wonderful what you did, killing my people. No, they are wrong, and they are believing lies. It's a balance that we have to come to, and it's not easy. It's a fight every single day of our lives. We struggle with it.
As you said, it's true. Is the nature that we have to change. We need to stop in the flesh and more living in the spirit, in the sense of living with the understanding that everything that we do it with already the understanding of the reason why we're doing it. Not because I was told so, but because I know that who God is. We know who God is. We know that God is magnificent. We know that God is compassion. God is love. God is,
And we can trust him. That's the bottom line, is trusting.
And it starts with us. When we start loving ourselves, we will be able to love others, But if we are stuck up and I am good and I'm better than you because I am keeping rules that you are not keeping.
No.
And that makes me better than you. No, that is not true.
But the other side of loving yourself is for me even harder. It's not about being stuck up. You shouldn't be stuck down. You have to
yes, I
you
understand.
have to love yourself in the sense that you realize that you're worthy, and that I don't know, there's so many things involved. You wouldn't do to yourself what maybe some of the things you've done to others. It's a kind of respect and loyalty, and looking at the person. It's not always about. Anyway, it's a juggling act. It's God is in the simple things. We don't always go, oh, yes, it's a given that the Spirit of God is in us and in us, and that God is magnificent. But on a very practical level, you're not always in the Spirit, so to speak. I don't even know that expression. You're not in the Spirit. It's a given. That's who we are as a being. So when you go and help somebody, you're not always what?
The problem is that we have been programmed. We have been programmed of what it means to live in the Spirit. When we talk about the Spirit, you come up with the idea of over here. No, it's not over here. It's here in your heart, here where the Spirit dwells.
Exactly, and that's why the very simple
living in the Spirit means to be trustful. Every say not to have duality. Like, okay, I'm gonna be good, but I'm gonna be bad too. No, it's to be transparent. It's to be, yourself, not to apparent to be someone else. No, be trustful. Be wherever you are to listen and be humble. Also, not being too much stuck up. There is certain qualities that we know, and every one of you knows, because the Spirit talks to us sometimes. Sometimes when we don't know about things, all of a sudden, there is something that comes from within that is the perfect thing to say to someone that is in need of help. You don't understand how, I don't know, remember my dad telling me something like that, or anyone that or my friends learning from, some things that it comes from within. And that within, it's God, it's the Spirit, it's God. It comes, and when we are connected to that, we are not connected to, oh, God is over there.
Yes, you're right.
The Spirit. I'm going to receive the Spirit. No, this is all Christian, and this is all, even in Judaism, there were some, there is actually, I believe that there are some groups in Israel, religious, that they are very connected in the sense that they sing, they pray, they go into a sort of connection, like so deep that there is, like, if you look at them, oh man, these people are in trance or something, there's something happening. But it's because they go within, they know, and anyways, it's always looking.
Well, thank God, God knows our hearts.
It's about de-learning what we have been programmed with.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not about we have been told to do things so to be robots and not to live in the spirit. I mean, in the heart, you know. So we are very distant. We don't want, we consider other, we are better than others. We are very judgmental because of this system. This is not what God wanted for us. God wants us to grow as a.
We know about that, Angel. That's why we're in this community. We understand it. Yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to add, Mauricio, before we close for Shabbat?
No, it's just that I want to add a little thing. In Matthew chapter 5, Jesus, Yeshua said, if you call Fatus, you call dumb to your brother, then you are slaying him. Okay. And so I'm paraphrasing. And this is related to what is written in this portion.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an invention of Yeshua.
Right,
okay?
Right.
Because in this portion, God said, okay, if you profane the God's name, then you'll go be executed, okay? Because it's related what you talk to the consequences of be alive or be dead, okay? And this is so deep because when you call to your brother, oh, you are this, and all those ugly words, what you are saying is that God is in that person. You're not really telling him to Mauricio, to Peggy, to Angel. No, you are talking to the God that is within.
We're made in his image.
Yeah, we're made at his image. And you are blaspheming God's name, right? Because God, how God see that person. Right. He look at him not as all these ugly words. He look at his creation. He look as, oh, he's a mirror of me in this world. So I just wanted to add that.
Yes, that's beautiful. So we have a text from Moshe in Uganda, and he's asking us to pray for the young men like him, that God finds them good wives. They want to get married. Don't be in too big of a hurry to get married, but wait for the right one, because let me tell you, if you marry the wrong one, your life and her life will be hell. And I can attest to that. So we'll keep praying for the young people to be able to speak the truth in Uganda, and to be able to serve God as each of us in this community work hard to do. Let us continue to serve each other as we serve our God. And if there's any needs, please let us know, and so that we can pray and do what is practical, because some people just need practical help in their lives. So thank you everybody again for your input. Angel and Karen, it's always a pleasure to see you. Rhonda, it's a pleasure to see you. I hope you're doing well. How's your mommy?
Yeah, she's hanging in there.
And Glenda, any news on Glenda?
I haven't heard anything.
Okay, we'll keep your brother, Tracy, he's all right?
He's having surgery in 2 weeks.
Okay, we'll keep all our families in prayer. We pray for Miriam's family, pray for my family. We pray for Stephen, who used to come to our community, and now he's homeless. He's wandering the streets. Miriam and I went to look for him, but we couldn't find him, trying to bring him some food and get some help. So let's all continue to pray for each other. We pray for Sarai, who wants to pass her exams and be able to work in her country. For Baruch, who's doing really well. For Mildred and the upcoming move. So we have a lot of things to pray for. Anyway, be well, everybody. We wish you all a Shabbat Shalom. And God willing, we'll
Welcome.
see you again next week.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Bye.
Shabbat shalom.